Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing something really fun. So here we have a paragraph. Now, this might look like a normal paragraph, but when I move my mouse, you'd see that we have this cool effect that happens near some characters around the mouse. And then they have this cool, kind of like a scrambling effect that we built a few weeks back. And yeah, and then it basically goes back to the original text. And as you move your mouse, basically the animated section basically moves along the mouse. It's a pretty cool and fun way of having your paragraphs in your website. Now, this is definitely very easy if you use GSAP. So we're going to be doing just that. So yeah, that's what we're going to be building in this video. So yeah, without a delay, let's get started and let's learn to build this. And before we begin, the source code is in the description so you guys can download and play with that. So yeah, without a delay, let's get started and let's learn to build this. All right, so here I'm in my index.html file, which has the style tag within which we have some styling for the text. And in the body, we just have a text div with a p tag, which has a fun fact. Now, this is how it looks in the browser. So this is the standard boilerplate of the entire animation. And then we also have CDNs. So the first one is the GSAP. The second one is the ScrambleText Plugin. Now, if you haven't watched my previous ScrambleText video, you can look at that to understand how to add the scramble effect to your text. And then the third is the SplitText plugin. Now, you don't really need the SplitText plugin since these stuff can be done easily via JavaScript, but since I didn't want the code to be too complicated for beginners, I just used this. So it's basically shortens your code as well. So you don't really need to basically loop through the entire text and then basically split them up in different characters. So it's easier to use the plugin. So this is basically what we need, and then we're going to need the script tag when we're going to add all our code. So let's start with that. So we'll have the script tag. The first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the SplitText plugin. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be grabbing this paragraph, and then every word inside here, we're going to just split them into different characters. So we're going to target the p tag, convert that into characters, and give it a class of char, char, or whatever you want to call it. And then let's say if I refresh and if I show you, you'd see that each of the individual characters are now in their individual divs with the class of char. The second thing that we want to do is after the scramble animation is done, we want it to revert back to the original code. So basically the original text that was in here. So we also want to store the original text. To store the original text, we're going to create a data attribute inside of each individual characters. So each individual character would hold its original value inside of a data attribute. Now the data attribute is called as data-content. So here in JavaScript, the way you create a data attribute, you just specify as dataset and then dot, you just give the name of the data attribute. So in this case, we want content. So we have dataset.content, and then here we just add the inner HTML of the character. Now, if I save it and if I show you, you would see that here, the first div has the data content of D in uppercase, the second one has I, and then the third one has D in lowercase, and so on and so forth. So basically, each individual characters are now storing the character they had in the data attribute. So now what we want to do is then we're going to start the onPointerMove event listener. So basically, when we move our mouse on top of this, we want to do something. So what do we want to do? So first thing first is we basically take each individual characters stored in this char array, we loop through them, and then we basically get their center position. So first we define the rectangle, basically the entire container that has the character. And then to get the center, we just take the rectangle left and then add it with the half of the width. So we get the center X, and then similarly we do that for the Y, so we have the center Y. And then what we do is we calculate the distance from our mouse. So when we add this event listener, we also passed in the E. The E is basically also has the mouse position. So the way we calculate the distance is basically, so the X position would be e.clientX minus center X. So basically the distance from the mouse cursor to the X position of basically the character would be e.clientX minus center X. And similarly, the Y would be this. And then we calculate the exact distance from the mouse to the character using the Pythagoras theorem. So to calculate the distance, we just have the math dot square root of this x squared plus y squared. So we just have x multiplied by x twice, and same for y, and then we get the distance. It might sound complicated, but it's not that difficult. So it's pretty easy to understand if you really basically know what I'm doing. So you just calculate the distance from your mouse to each individual character that you have. And then what we do is we add a condition. So if the distance is less than 100, so basically we don't want all the different characters to animate. We just want characters that are 100 pixels near the mouse. We just want to add the animations to those only. So we use GSAP.to. We target the character that is less than 100. And then now keep in mind that this is inside of a for each. So this basically gets triggered for all the characters. So we have GSAP.to, and then we target for each individual character. And then we have override to true. This means that if the character is already in an animation, we want to override that to this current animation. And then now, if you have seen the intro, you would see that the duration of the scramble effect is different for the characters that are far from the cursor, and then those are closer. So you want the duration of the closer characters to be more compared to the farther one. So you have the fade in kind of effect. So we subtract 1 by the distance of the character, and then we just divide it by 100. So that's basically what we do. So, I mean, obviously first we divide the distance by 100 and then we subtract. So, I mean, yeah, you get the point. And then you have the ScrambleText effect. So what we do is we first need to tell what will be the original data that you want to show after this ScrambleText animation is done. So we have the text, and then here we just add the content that we just stored before we basically start the animation and stuff. So we have this stored here. Now keep in mind that we created a data set or a data attribute to each individual character. So for this ScrambleText, the original content would be the data content. So the data content that is stored in that specific character. And then for the characters that you want to show on animation, I just added a dot and a colon. Now you could add maybe whatever you want to add here. I just added these two. And then you have the speed. And then what we want to do is when you start the animation, we want to give the character a class of scrambling. And when it's complete, we want to remove the class of scrambling. Now, if I save this, if I show you, so refresh, you'd see that we have this animation. But what's happening is that the scramble effect or the animated one don't have a specific color, which we had in the intro. So since we're already adding a class here, we'll just grab onto this in our CSS and then we just style it. So here we just target the char of scrambling, and then we give it a background of linear gradient. Let's save. And you'd see now the linear gradient is applied to each individual character's background, but we don't really want that. We want the characters itself to have the background. So we'd have WebKit background clip to text, WebKit text fill color as transparent, and then background clip as text. Let's save. And now when you move your cursor, you'd see that we have this cool effect that we have on the text. So yeah, this is a pretty good and nice effect if you want to have for the different paragraphs for your website. It's a fun and really cool way, which the user might really like. And so yeah, that's it for this video. The source code is going to be in the description, so make sure to check that out. And yeah, have fun. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn the notifications bell on, since I post in cool stuff like this every week. So yeah, that's it for this video. Meet you guys in the next. Till then, bye bye, take care, and peace.